Lay aside every weight. It's not one person. If we are running together and some of us have laid aside the weight, then some will be lagging behind in the race. This is not a race where some will get second prize and third prize. There is no bronze or silver award in this race. All will receive a first prize. Let us lay aside not some of the weight, but every weight, and the sin which so easily ensnares us, not me, but us. We are in this race together. And if you're lagging behind, you're pulling me behind, because we have to get to the finish line together. Most time when we talk about sin in the church, our focus is on one area only. When you talk about sin is in the church, we think about sexual sin. But I want to burst your bubbles today. Paul was not talking about sexual sin. Notice the word so easily. Now, it's not so easily to get in the bed with an ex-person. It takes some time. It takes some thinking. It takes some planning. But the Apostle Paul said, this sin, it is very easily ensnare you. Have you ever find yourself in some predicament and you wonder, how did I get myself in this predicament? And you say to yourself, I did not see it coming. It just slapped me in the face. And so the sin that I want to talk to us about, the sin that the Apostle Paul was talking about, that so easily ensnare us. The sin of unbelief. I thought I had a real good sermon prepared. But the Lord said, talk to the people about the sin of unbelief. This is what Paul was talking about. And I've heard this message preached, this passage preached over and over. I've preached from it, but I've never heard anyone preach about the sin that Paul was talking about. It was a special kind of sin. The sin. The champion. It's a special person. My dad used to remind my brothers, I am the man of this house. I'm not a man of this house. He would say, I am the man of this house. The Apostle Paul wasn't just talking about sin, but he said the sin. There's a special kind of sin that is easily ensnares us. The sin of unbelief. And so my topic today is the sin that entangles. Now, Paul started out talking about running a race together. Some of us love to watch those races. And you have never seen anyone try to run 100 meter, 200 meter, 400, and they have something tying them up. Entangled to become twisted together with or caught in. For you to run a race, you have to free yourself. And Paul said, we have a race to run. And yes, it's okay to lay aside the heavy weight. But something is tying you up. A cord is very light, but it can prevent you from running the race. The rope that will tie you up, it doesn't weigh 100 pounds. The sin that will hinder you from reaching your full potential, it is not a sexual sin. It is a sin that seems very light, but it prevents you from running the race effectively. Ensnared means to be trapped. Paul said this kind of sin is a trap. It gets control of you. I used to set back home, growing up as a boy, I used to set some snares for bird. It is not something to scare the bird. It is something to trap the bird so I can then have full control over the bird. Of unbelief is what keeping us from striving. Some of us should have been a homeowner already. But unbelief is your problem. Some of you should have had your business up and running, but unbelief is your problem. The sin of unbelief. And if you think sexual sin is dangerous, wait until you explore the sin of unbelief. How many of us want to prosper in this life? My biggest problem, your biggest hindrance is not sexual sin. It's unbelief. The sin of unbelief will cause you to trip and fall. And so you must have full, complete trust in the promises of Yahweh. If you don't believe his word, you cannot obtain. Unbelief is a wicked and dangerous kind of sin. I said unbelief is a wicked and dangerous sin. You know why this house is not full to capacity? Unbelief. It blinds the eyes of those who you witness to. Unbelief will blind your eyes, and unbelief calls for more proof. Has anyone ever present a deal before you and you doubt the deal and you said to the person, I have to see more proof. I'm not buying into this thing unless I see some proof. When the word got out that the Messiah was risen, one of the disciples named Thomas, when he heard the news, he said, I will not believe unless I see. And when he saw the Messiah, he said, I have to feel. I have to push my hand in his side. Unbelief called for proof. We know there's a God, we have never seen him. We know there's a third heaven, we have never been there. But unbelief will blind your eyes to the truth. And you want proof. Before I get into that thing, I need some proof. You want to see the end result before you get involved. And God cannot work mightily with unbelief. Yeshua said, I could not do much in my hometown. It's not that he didn't want to work much miracles, but unbelief hinders him. The sin of unbelief, it hinders the blessing of God that you are to acquire. Unbelief is your biggest problem. How many of you have seen your dream home? Why you're not in it, Sister Melissa? How many of you have seen your dream car? And Dr. Sutherland still not driving it. Unbelief. So do we understand today how we have to pray each day and ask the Lord to forgive us because we sin even when we don't realize that we are sinning? Doubting and unbelief is a sin. We have to run this race together. Paul said, let us run this race together. I'm not coming in first and you're second. We must finish together. This is not a competition. That's why we have to run together. I'm not lagging and you are in front. And the body of Christ ought to be in sync. It is time to trust and believe God. One song said, trust and obey. There is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. So how can we live a prosperous life? How can we live a happy life when we doubt him every step of the way? I want to change your mindset going forward. In Numbers chapter 13 and 14, God promised the children of Israel houses they did not build. God said, you will possess houses you did not build. You will reap vineyard you did not plant. And when they got so close to the promise, Moses sent some spies to go and spy out the land. I want you to go and survey the land and bring back some evidence. 12 men went to spy the land. They saw the proof. They ate of the fruit. Do you think they were just picking grapes as big as your head and did not taste the fruit? 40 days journey. They ate of the fruit of the land and they came back and they said, here is evidence. The land is indeed a fruitful land. But I'm terrified. I still have doubt. Even though I saw the evidence, I still have some doubt. What more can God do for you when he brought you to the car dealership and he showed you the car of your dream? He brought you to the house. You toured the house. And you heard the price. And you let fear convince you, I cannot afford this thing. The sin of unbelief is why we are in the predicament that we are in. Now, if the earth is truly the Lord's and all its fullness, if everything that is in the earth belongs to God, and God said, I will give it to you, how can we be fearful? How can you doubt that God is able? Quit sinning. Quit doubting God. My wife and I recently, we visit a friend of ours, have a restaurant. I didn't know we were going to eat for free. But we sat down, we ordered, and we ate. And at the end, we were getting ready to leave, and I asked for the bill. The owner of the restaurant said, "The bill is on the house." I said, "My God, if I had known, I would order some more." But the owner of the restaurant said, "The bill is on the house." I want to tell you today, God is saying some things is on the house. He owns it all. And you are fearful. The owner of the restaurant could said, "This is on the house." Don't you think God owns the earth and everything that's in it? And God wants his people to prosper. But we are doubting God.